All right, I think we have full membership. Vice Chair Norton, I can see your name. Are you connected for audio? Looks like that she's still working on a connection.
Is my background backwards again? It was last time and I'm trying to figure out how this works.
No, yours is right, but is mine
right?
backwards?
Okay.
Yours is right, and I'm still slacking. I still haven't done it. I still have my.
You're not alone. I might be a maverick and just go a couple more months and not do it happen.
You need to do it from the back of a horse. That would be.
There you go.
That's how you do it.
Okay.
I'll try it from a ski resort from the top of Sundance one of these days, or at least fake it. Let's see, Vice Chair Norton, can you hear us okay? We saw flickerings of connection and then not.
I couldn't hear you, and now I could hear you.
Gotcha. Okay.
It sounds like she's in her tomato garden.
Yeah, that's me. Just bottling my tomatoes left and right.
Right on. All right, I think we got our full team, unless Deputy Jones, we're waiting for anybody else on your side before we start. Are we good to go?
Good to go, sir.
Okay.
Tammy's going to pull up the agenda. So, yeah, go ahead.
And
we don't have any
I realized that when Vice Chair Norton was conducting, she read the appropriate remote statement. And I realized that I have not been in the habit of doing that. Does somebody have whatever we're supposed to
Guess
read?
what? I found out we don't have to.
You don't have
Oh.
to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
We're good to go then. Welcome to Finance. And I will turn to Deputy Jones. I don't believe we have anybody on for public comment, but if you are on for public comment, can you speak up and let us know you're here? We didn't have any advance notice, but we're always open to people joining us. Okay. Deputy Jones, the floor is yours.
Sir, we could go to item number 2.
Yes.
We have a guest, Tracy Nuttall. Welcome, Tracy. And then Jeff. I think Jeff will kick it off if you'll call on him, sir.
Yeah, Director Brad Holt, let me just give for background and also for Tracy's benefit. We've got several things that in the works that relate to the requirements and then what flows from that, some of the reporting obligations for our LEAs. And we on this committee have talked about the task force that's moving forward on reports. This one came separately, but we're looking for ways to kind of coordinate what's coming out of this work. This is, Jeff will explain, but a really helpful overview of the requirements that are out there. And what we're hearing a lot from the LEAs is they most definitely want to be accountable, want to make sure that they are compliant, but we have some overlapping and duplicative and sometimes burdensome avenues of how we track legal obligations. So this is, I think, an important piece of a larger topic that we're looking at. How can we maintain accountability while making sure that our local leaders have the time to lead? And as I keep putting it, as a lawyer, I hate the idea that they have to spend all their time being lawyers, and we want them to be school leaders. And so this is a really helpful part of surveying the landscape, understanding what it is. And then, I think we're going to have a couple ways of looking at that and say, how can we balance accountability with, again, not being not making everybody spend all their time on paperwork and condensing and making it flexible. So with that little intro, I really appreciate that this is coming to us in finance, and I'll turn it to Jeff to bring in Tracy.
Great, thank you. I love the intro to the intro. Jeff Van Holten, Director or Policy Advisor for the board. Happy to be here this morning on Friday. Good to see you all again. Tracy is on tour this morning. She is going to be going to all 3 committees, starting with all of you. So we will try not to take too much time so we can do the October committee hop, as we call it, so we can bounce to each one. But the impetus for this project really started in the Standards and Assessment Committee when the question was asked, what is the assurance document for? Because it's become this document where a lot of people have started to place random legal requirements because no one was really certain whether or not there was another way to make sure those legal requirements were being adhered to, or whether or not there was another way to make sure LEAs even knew that they were a requirement. So as this committee is aware, you approved some carry forward funds to be spent on a contract for us to hire Tracy so that she would be able to begin doing this work on the master legal requirements list. So I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to pass it right over to Tracy. And I believe, Tracy, you'll have to correct me, you might want to share your screen.
Yes, I'll go ahead and I think someone's sharing now. I don't know if I'll go ahead and try and see if I can. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. Let me get this shared. Uh-oh. Hope I'm not having a buggy day.
Is it allowing you to share?
It is, but it wants me to share. Hold on, I think I can fix that. It wants me to share Zoom, which I'm sure you guys don't want to see another Zoom on your screen. So let me just get all PowerPoint and then I'll share that. Okay, see if I can do that. Oh, dear. No, it's not letting me. Sorry. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what would be the
Would it be
fastest.
easier if you sent it to me and I could share it?
Yeah, let me try one more thing and then we'll have to go with that option. Sorry, I wanted so much to be quick today and I'm not being very nimble, unfortunately. So
You're totally
try
fine.
one more thing.
Tracy, we've got a fairly light agenda, I think. So you're just fine. This is important, and don't worry. I think we're doing just fine.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, I'm just going to relax and send it to Jeff and then he can hopefully man it for me and it'll be great. Okay. Sorry about that. I think the real problem is that I recently switched to an iPad Pro and unfortunately it is not as functional as a PC. So it's just little things that,
Yep.
you know, come up and it, unfortunately, sometimes it's at the wrong time. So hold on. Okay. Can I just be quiet real quick and then I'm not as good at talking and doing as I'd like, unfortunately. So
No worries.
And while Tracy's doing that, maybe I'll expand the intro a little bit. We've been meeting weekly, I think, Tracy, since the beginning of this contract, which was earlier this year, and really been diving deep into the code, administrative rules, how to make things easier to navigate, how to kind of bring it all forward into an easier way for LEAs to know what it is they're supposed to be doing, legally speaking, especially where there's a lot of LEAs that don't necessarily have their own general counsel on hand. So we have been doing a lot of work. I think Tracy's going to highlight some really interesting kind of tangential things that came out of this that we did not expect. And as well, she's going to kind of cover, as board member Moss mentioned, how this crosses over into the reducing reports work that's going on, how it's going to reinform the assurance document and whatnot. So it's going to be, we're very excited for the work that Tracy has done. And she has an extensive background. She actually worked with Angie before we stole Angie.
back in the day.
Back in the day. So she has an extensive familiarity with the public ed code, having been one of the main drafters with Angie back for a long, long time on a lot of the bills during legislative session.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. I will take it from here. Hopefully you have the email, but I think I can get started even as you're pulling it up. So first of all, I just wanted to say I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm really excited to be working on this project. Public education is in my heart. I know it is in yours too. And so I just want you to know I choose to be in public education. That's the area of law I want to be in. And this really is up my alley, and you'll understand why in a minute when I tell you a little about myself. So the most important thing for you to know about me is what Jeff already said. I did about 7 sessions as Associate General Counsel at the Utah Legislature, and mostly that was in public education, and that was by choice. That's the area I wanted to be in. So, but then you may not know, this gives me a little bit of a bad reputation sometimes, but I did lead the staff effort in the recodification effort up there. So I did a lot of the outlining for the actual structure of that. And then obviously a lot of the drafting on those bills. So that's why I'm here, for better or for worse. Some people love it, some people hate it, but I'm here. So Jeff, sorry, I'm gonna have to tell you when to move the slides. We'll go ahead and move forward. Jeff already talked a little bit. You can go one forward, Jeff, on that. Thanks. So I'm going to just try to be really quick on a few intro slides, and then I'm going to slow down a little on the solution slides, because that's where I think we really want to spend our time today. So the original goals of the Master Legal Requirements List project were to evaluate the ever popular assurances document and come up with some solutions for some of the problems there, and then create this master list of legal requirements. And I think implied and what the chair was mentioning a minute ago was to help understand and lessen the reporting requirements. And we can move forward, Jeff, on that. Okay, so I'm not going to go over this whole slide, but I just think it's important to mention that a big part of what I did was interview stakeholders. And I probably met with 7 or 8 attorneys from school districts. And I talked to an attorney from a chargeable management company. I talked to some district superintendents of small districts. So I was just trying to get an overview of what the landscape is like. I wish I could have done more, but I did get it's really extremely useful feedback on how they're using the rules and what would be helpful to them in moving forward. So that's what I wanted to mention. So we can move forward, Jeff. Actually, go maybe 2 more forward. I'm going to skip this part about kind of the hurdles that we came to. We can come back if people have questions. But kind of the main problems that came up that you won't be surprised about when I tell you is, first of all, I think, we really wanted to help LEAs to access legal requirements. And the idea that came up was this master list. But when you create a master list like that, I think the inherent problems are, first, liability. Whenever you restate the law, you're going to have some liability if others rely on it. So that's kind of a problem. And then the other problem is just sustainability and maintenance issues, which is kind of what we already have. We have people making great spreadsheets out there to document, like, these are the required trainings, these are the required policies, but sometimes those are really difficult to find, and they're also really difficult to maintain. So these are the hurdles that we were trying to address as we move through this project. And then obviously the big issue that I'll get to is the assurances document, which kind of the root problem with that, I think, is just that there's not a general monitoring and enforcement scheme in place. And we really just don't have a lot of guidance in code. And what we have isn't that great. It's not good language. And so we looked at that too, is kind of, what do we do about monitoring and enforcement at USBE, and how do we use that? How do we do something and fix the assurances document? So kind of, I just want to take you through kind of 3 steps. We are well into step 1 and doing a lot of that. And then kind of the steps kind of build on each other. So the more we do on step 1, we get a little better at step 2, and then we'll move towards step 3. So step 1 is just improving access. It's kind of our low-hanging fruit, and it actually is dovetailing really nicely with the website redesign effort. It seems the right time to do that. And step 2 is to define the monitoring in rule and to take care of some things on the rule level. And then the step 3 would be to expand that into the legislative regime and see what we can do there. So we can go ahead and move forward, Jeff, on that. Thanks. Okay, so step 1. So kind of, instead of creating new law, it's what we decide on is improving access to existing law and resources. So what that's going to look like is a new USB rules homepage, and then to create a web page for each individual USB rule. And I'll show you next why why we think that will be really useful. So you can go ahead to the next slide, Jeff. Okay. So do you want to click on that link for me, Jeff? Thanks so much. Sorry, I don't mean to boss anybody around, except my kids. I'm allowed to boss them. So, okay. So right now, as you know, the rules are organized in this long numerical list. And if that link works, that's great. But I think probably most of you are really familiar with what the rules list looks like. And most of the users that I talk to, you know, they will just scroll down, and this is how I use the rules right now. I scroll down looking through each one and try to find the rule that I need. And so that's difficult. It's difficult. You know, I'm an attorney and I find it a little cumbersome, and those who aren't attorneys really find it cumbersome, right? So you can go back to the slide whenever you like. And there's about 200 rules, and you guys know that. Whenever you're ready, Jeff, you can go back to the slide. So a new homepage would feature these components, and these are the components we've been working with IT on, and we think that they're feasible and we're ready to kind of move forward. There's just a little work on the back end that I have to do to populate some things. So a search feature that works. A lot of attorneys, a lot of people know what rule they're going to the website to find already. So if they can have a search feature that gets them right to that rule, that's great. And I'm excited to tell you what comes after they click on the rule, and that's on the next page. But then we will organize the rules by category instead of number. So it's a quick, so for those who don't know what they're looking for, it will be much quicker for them to get to that rule. And then a state code and USB rule connector. So basically, if you know the code section, or like you've seen a bill, and so the bill takes you to the code section you need, but then you're like, I need to find the rule that goes with this code section. You'll be able to easily go to the code section, and then it'll have the rule that's associated with it right there. And finally, and this one might be one of the most important ones, is a programming component that allows an LEA to generate a list of rules that require like a training. So this would be kind of a way to always bring up the most recent list of trainings required by rules. And other examples, we wouldn't do this for 30 things. It would be like 5 to 10 things. One would be bring up a list of rules that require training, bring up a list of rules that require a policy or require notice to parents or that kind of thing. And that's kind of the spreadsheet that I'm working on in the background right now, is populating all those fields, like which rules require these things. And that would be, I think, really, really useful to LEAs based on the feedback that I've had. Thanks so much, Jeff. Would you move me to the next one? So now the next slide, I'm really excited to tell you about. It seems so simple, but I honestly think it will be really, really useful. So what we want to do is create 200 individual rules pages. And yes, we have talked to IT about this. So they are in the loop, and I think they're on board. In fact, I really think they're seeing it as an investment of their time now that really helps them on the back end, because it becomes a much more sustainable system for them. So I'm going to just have Jeff click on that link right there in the example. So this is something that is probably really familiar to you. During the session, you see a bill page, and the rules pages wouldn't look exactly like this, but they would be, you can see that you can access the PDF here, right, for the bill, and that would be like you can access the rule PDF. And then on the side, there's all these resources, right, that are easy to get to. So for us, those resources would be like related code sections, other related rules, related or any model policies that USBE has come up with for that, any incorporated manuals or other documents. I mean, honestly, I don't need to go on the list because I think you can kind of figure out for yourself how useful that would be. But Jeff, if you would just scroll up to the top and click on, status. One really important thing that this would be able to do, and we've talked to IT about this, any user who clicked on the rule would be able to do one click into the status or the history of the rule, and they could tell immediately if the rule was currently being amended or what the history of amendments on that rule could be. And that's a big one for attorneys, for school district attorneys, is to be able to access that. I talked to one attorney who literally has the red line rules in a binder printed out right now so that he can access it quickly instead of digging through. Like right now, I think it's just organized by date, which is great. But to be able to get in there in one click and to see if the rule, if a new rule is coming out or if it hasn't been amended in a while is really, really useful. So I'm really excited about that. Just to organize things by rule. Another thing that we're excited about is to hopefully collaborate with section leaders on these pages so that they can inform us what they would like on there and what they think. And then they have a repository, a place to always go to for those resources as well. And then we can also link to the sections to their website, to their web pages from there. So anyway, we hope that it really brings, you kind of think of like three circles out there. And we hope that this will really bring like pieces of USB together into one place. So that's kind of the goal there. Okay, thanks so much, Jeff. Would you mind going back to the slide? And we'll go to the next one. Okay, you can, if we'll just skip this one. If you want to talk about deliverables later, I can go back and tell you what our deliverables will be, but I'm in a lot, I've already been through, have a lot of work done on all those deliverables. So for step 2 and step 3, this is where we really get into the assurances problem and the monitoring and enforcement problem. And since we're kind of focusing on the low-hanging fruit, these ones are not as well developed. So I'm just going to go through these really quickly. So first of all, the recommendation I have is to limit the assurances document to just federal assurances. And then we have one group or one person who's able to take over that document. The federal assurances are important and they're still using that in a very important way. And so that's why I recommend that. But then instead of, but the state assurances are fulfilling a purpose right now. It's just kind of a limited monitoring purpose. So what I would recommend is to replace that with a rule that actually defines USB's monitoring and enforcement structure. So like I said, we really don't have a lot in code and even in rule that tells us what USB should monitor. And that's kind of scary. But the good news about that is that USB has the power to define what they want to do. And I think that's really exciting, and that USB can take that on and really decide how you want to monitor. And if you want to monitor some programs a lot and others a little. And so the world is kind of open to you right now, which I think is really great. And then of course, there's going to be a component whenever you start a new rule or you take away the assurances rule, there's we have to go clean up some stuff. So kind of just addressing the collateral damage. And this you can see how this will really logically flow into the work to be done at the legislative level as we draft this rule. It will open up all the things that we kind of need to fix and take care of at the legislative level. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Jeff, thank you. So finally, step 3. Oh, sorry, I do. Okay, so step 3 would be to really create a vision statement for how the state statute should address public education. And this would be, a stepping back. It's just really interesting because of my background working up there. I have some insight into what the code looks like right now and what it could look like. And also the differences between other agencies and USBE because of the statute, the constitutional authority that USBE has. So I think sitting down and really creating a vision statement for what USB wants to do with state statute and then doing what it needs to do to accomplish that. So obviously this won't be a surprise to you. Part of that process would be identifying code provisions that need to be repealed, amended, or created, and then also engaging in proactive and reactive conversations to work towards accomplishing the vision. I personally just wanted to mention just things that I know and the way I was trained to draft at legislative research are ways that that can be changed and ways that we can inform legislative research about the way that we think it should be drafted. And I think there's actually a lot of really important work to be done there that would be helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude my presentation. Oh, sorry, you can. That's a throwaway slide. Thanks for letting me talk to you so fast. I hope that that gave you an overview, and I'd love to just answer questions now about the finance committee specific questions on that. Yeah, okay, I see a hand there.
Thank you very much, Tracy. That's a lot of good work, and like you say, it does, I think, inform some of what we're looking at. And just so that you know, in our task force, we've got a really good crew there that's looking at sort of the cascade of requirements as they relate down to reports, and then how that's going to be affected by USIMs and the actual logistics of gathering information for compliance. And so, having an overall systemic picture of where those requirements start is critical. And then as we work to get our heads around that, it sounds like you're already doing some thinking along some of the same lines that our task force is about. What do we need to go back and suggest potential repeal, consolidation, or just look at the reporting piece. So seems like a ton of stuff there that is useful. And I was especially excited about the part of organizing and making it accessible by subject and just putting some, making it comprehensible. That it's interesting how many of those pieces I think will be improved for just knowing what's what. So anyway, thank you. And yes, let me turn to questions. I think Deputy Jones and Member Hart had hands up.
Member Hart can go, sir.
Oh, there you go. Molly. You're mute.
This is excellent work, and I think you've made a huge sprint right from the very start. So thank you. I'm wondering what you need from us as a finance committee or as board members. What kinds of things can facilitate the work, help you, anything that we can do?
Honestly, I think you're doing what you did. I think that supporting this project is phenomenal. I've worked in public education for a long time, and that's why I'm kind of excited to be here now, because I've seen things change over time. And it's just really an exciting time to be part of this and to be able to be at a time with USB where there is a lot going on, but it's like kind of time to organize it. And so it's just really cool. I mean, you actually have to generate before you can organize, and you've generated. So it's just a really cool thing. I think what would be helpful is just helping to get USB staff on board. I don't think that they won't be, but I think, it's just great to get that feeling of people getting excited about the project and that we're all working together. And just the biggest thing for me always is just feedback on anything you think could be added or changed. Because I'm just a big information gatherer, and I say the more the better up front. And then we really and that's why I wanted to talk to the stakeholders so much, because it's just like, there's no point in me sitting down and making something that nobody's going to use. We really have to hear from people on, even as board members, how do you use the admin rules? We need to hear from, I made a list of like 10 different kinds of users, and there's many, many different kinds of users of the rules. And so I just think the more we can hear from different groups and from your constituents and what they need is great, because then we can make those little adjustments that are helpful.
And just another question, would you be willing to share your PowerPoint and include your contact information on that as well?
Of course.
Thank you.
After I get rid of that throwaway slide at the end.
Oh, I love
Sorry
him
about that.
too. So more slides are good.
That's right.
And I asked Jeff if this could go into backup too. So maybe after the that way it'll be available to everybody on our board. But an email would be terrific too. Deputy Jones, you had a hand up?
Yeah, just a quick clarification or just in question. So Rule 100 does define monitoring. The definitions in there, and then this is probably our first full fiscal year where we've had a centralized monitoring team. So the plan was to have the monitoring team work directly with the LEAs on further, fleshing that out basically, and that we would take more of a training approach on monitoring, like train them on what we're looking for, the standards for, a particular state program or a federal program. So how does that fit into our direction, or how does this fit into our direction to combine with to collaborate with the LEAs because that was a decision back a year ago, was to centralize monitoring. So how does that all tie in?
I think that sounds great. I am for gathering everything that's been done and that's being done right now. And the rule right now that I have in my mind is wide open to all the ideas and how to do it. So I think to get people together to find out what's working now and how to go farther and really wrap our arms around the whole system, and then just get that down on paper. I'm very open to that. I know Angie has a few ideas, specific ideas that I'm sure you're not unfamiliar with. And so to me right now, we're still in very much a gathering phase of everything that's going on. And we'll plan to talk to I mean, to me, if knowing that, I would just start with that group and kind of work from there to gather more. So that's great. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, thanks.
Chair Huntsman, and I think Member Hart, you still have a hand up. Are you
Oh.
back in line? Okay, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited for this work. I do have one question while this work is getting done, as it's just on the creative side. That's like the stronger the tool. There's a maintenance of effort that has, I mean, once this is created or as it's being created, it's not like done. It's in constant, there's constant adjustments to it as rules change, as what happens, like, well, statutes and rules change. So I'm curious if there's an opportunity, Tracy, to track, just throw it on the board or something. Okay, oh, while this is happening, this needs to be maintained, and somehow quantify or qualify and quantify maybe that effort, so that as we're moving forward, it's just not a snapshot in time and it gets put on a shelf. So as this thing's creating, I can see it getting into something really big. It may reduce down to something a little smaller. I mean, it's evolution in collecting all this data, but the maintenance part is something that we kind of need to track on the side, but not take away the momentum of the work, so that this tool, as I'm calling it, is manageable.
Yes.
So am I making sense?
I think so. I want to make sure I understand your question, but let me go ahead and answer it. I'm really glad you asked this, because I think this is one of the most exciting parts of the project to me, is that we've tried to create it in a very sustainable way. So the great thing about the rules right now is that they're always getting amended, and they have to actually be looked at every 5 years, and you know that. So there's already this process and this structure in place to review everything and to take care of everything. So the great thing about that is that these individual rule websites, they can be updated and checked on every time you amend the rule. And that's kind of what I had in mind. So it's not a huge maintenance effort. You don't need to hire someone extra, but when you amend the rule, you'll check the website and make sure everything's up to date, because it all goes together with what you're doing in the rule anyway. And then you'll be able to hopefully maintain it as well as you can. And I think you'll find, when I did the recodification, what we did was we created a structure that we could grow with. And I think that's what we would be doing with the categories, is we would be creating an organizational structure that we could move things into. So in most cases, there will already be a place for them to go. So you have another rule on curriculum. We already have a category for curriculum, so we know just where it goes. So does that answer your question? Is that where you were going, Chair?
That helps me, but on the maintenance part of it, and this has to do with internal controls and who has access, who's the gatekeeper. Once this is created, we need to be thinking of that along the way here. Because I see internal controls. I see Debbie's hands raised on this too, but it is more than just an inventory or a snapshot. That, I mean, the reports and requirements task force definitely would benefit from this, but it's something that I think, well, it'd just be nice to have that side conversation or track. We will maintain this, and this is how, while this is evolution is taking place, and instead of at the end, okay, now, what did we create? But I don't want it to deflect from the work and everything that's happening there. I'm sorry, my phone keeps ringing. I'm trying to put it to the quiet mode, but I mean, that's not really a big concern, but I'm wondering if maybe that's, so is Angie take point on this, or is this Scott? I can't remember, but I can have a side conversation there with whoever's taking point, or through the chair and I can visit on it. It's just a concern I have, because we build something and then we got to keep it.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a great point. I'm noting it down, and I'll talk to Angie and Jeff about it and make sure that we're doing that on the site. I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do want to jump in here.
Yes,
and
yes, please.
I am Tracy's publicist, and she does have another gig. So I want to just kind of throw that out there. There might be some quick questions, but I need to kind of pull her way to licensing shortly.
Okay.
Tracy, just raise a hand and tell us. We do have a couple hands up. Do you want to take those, or do you need to run and save those for offline? You just let us know what your time is like.
Jeff, do we need to go? He's
Sounds like
better
it.
at gauging the committee meetings than I am.
I think we can, Board Member Norton and Hart, if you have quick questions, we can jump to those. If you feel like they are more in depth, maybe we can take it offline to email.
Yeah, we do
Whatever you
have.
feel is best.
We have Chief Auditor Davis on as well, so I don't know who was up first, but Vice Chair Norton, I think you were first, maybe.
Yes, but I'm happy to step aside since the audit questions seem to go hand in hand with Chair Huntsman's, if that would help.
Yeah, Debbie, do you want to?
I'll just be really quick. So Chief Audit Executive Debbie Davis for the board. And I think Chair Huntsman hit the nail on the head. What we're talking about is an internal control system surrounding this area. And I love this project, don't get me wrong. It sounds like we've set up the control environment, the structure. We want to get staff on board. The way to sustain then is control activities, which would be policies and procedures. That helps us ensure everybody's on the same page. We're using the same format. Everyone is informed. We communicate. And so that's just my plug is, yes, internal control system all the way, but get all the components of the internal control system. Otherwise, there's gaps and deficiencies, and we won't be as successful as we want to be.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. CAE, am I getting the initials in the correct order? Thank you very much. Kristen or Molly, do you want to weigh in? Again, Tracy, just let us know, or Jeff. But
one quick question that I had was, I personally don't see this as a monolith that one day we're just going to open the door and there's the completed project. Is that the way you see it? Or, I mean, I'm hoping that it's going to be, as a component becomes available, we can start having access to that and a new one and then another one, kind of an organization of smaller hills joining together to make a range rather than just one big monolith. So can you give me kind of some vision of what we should expect in the future?
I'm not sure I understand about which. Are you talking about all three steps, or is there one step in particular that you're talking about?
Well, you mentioned that there was a component, and then there is another component. Are we going to have each of those components released as they are ready, or is it going to be one big component that here's the system?
As far as the website and the individual web pages?
Yeah, and the
okay.
searchability for all the rest of us.
Okay, so we haven't moved forward with, we've been talking to IT and they say everything we want is doable and they're willing to do it. Some of it has to do with the new website redesign. So the search function won't be functional until the new website redesign is complete. The way that it is now, it isn't functional. But one thing that we can do right now is start on the individual web pages. So I guess the answer to your question is the homepage may be rolled out more in stages, but I think like the categories thing is something that we can do quickly. Maybe not the search function, maybe not the programming one, but the individual web pages I think is a big step forward, and that is something that IT is willing to work on now, even before the new website redesign is done.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Member Hart?
Yes. How long is this project for?
The contract is for 18 months with two options to 1-year options
Gotcha.
to renew.
Well, and so, the original scope, I think, was collecting the information and kind of surveying. Are we going to make sure that gets done first so that any of these additional things, depending on if we run out of time, it just seems like a huge project, and I want to make sure we're getting the collection of the information and really just ensuring that that's in place, because I know how web projects can extend and extend. Is that how the project is formulated, the project plan?
Okay, so part of the web is, outside of our control as far as IT's role. My job, and we didn't get to go to the deliverables slide, but my part is a couple of spreadsheets, and I'll send that out so that you can actually see the deliverables. And my spreadsheet should be done, I think, in like maybe by the end of November.
Oh,
And so
cool.
the information will be gathered. I've already gone through all the rules, and right now I'm just sort of like in an organizing part,
Fantastic. That's wonderful. That's music to my ears. I look forward to seeing that information gathered. That's a lot of work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for your time today. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, lots of exciting stuff. Appreciate you taking time, and good luck on the rest of the tour. It's a whirlwind.
Thank you. Thanks for being a good, you raised my confidence, so I'm ready to go on to the next one. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Back to you, Deputy Jones. I think we're on to, let me pull up our next agenda item here. The school construction oversight action item 3,
Yeah.
construction oversight inspections, training and reporting.
Yes, sir. So Ben can lead out on this one, I think. So, well, let me just caveat this. This is just the first step to a longer process, and a much needed one for us to revamp the rule, the resource manual. I'm happy to say that we've selected someone to take Matt Barrett's place. So we'll have a school construction specialist starting soon. Sam may have more of the details on what the start date is, things like that. So yeah, go ahead, Sam. Well, Chair, is it okay if you know who it is?
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. And board members, Scott introduced this, Deputy Jones introduced this a while back. This is something we've been talking to the governor's office about, field. There's some confusion. We've had some issues here. Sam might be addressing these, but again, just in the way of kind of background overview, we don't necessarily want to be the ones who are building schools. That's not us, but there's a lot of need for guidance and understanding, I think, and that was what, just a refresher, Deputy Jones brought to us, the governor's office has been talking to us about. So trying to make this a little more coherent and avoid some of the issues that we've had to deal with recently in some of the construction process. You've all seen some email traffic on that where, a couple things about the way that construction has changed that have affected the ability to kind of stay on top of it, get everything in line. So Sam, I hope I'm not preempting or going over the top, but just sort of setting the table from where we were last time. And this is probably one of a number of discussions we'll have. So thanks, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a successful recruitment for this vacant position. I won't publicly name our candidate at this point, as the formalities of background checks and hiring processes are still taking place, but we have had an accepted offer about a candidate that we're excited about, and he is planning to start October 31st. And he comes to us from one of the local school districts with a wealth of experience managing projects. He's a senior project manager and senior inspector from a local school district. He has ICC certifications, project management professional certifications, OSHA certifications, and additionally has a large wealth of experience at a major university in the Midwest. And so we're very excited to bring this person on and have them help coordinate. But as Scott said, we have an opportunity here to clarify, streamline, and help the school construction process as a whole go smoother. And so we're excited about that opportunity.
Great to hear. Hallelujah. And thank you guys for working on that recruiting so quickly. Scott, do you want to talk us through the action item, or is that for Sam?
I think that's
No, it's for Ben. Yeah.
For Ben,
yeah.
Sorry. All right.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Ben Rasmussen, Director of Law and Professional Practices. Good to be with the Finance Committee this morning. So with R277471, this looks like a lot of changes as you go through the rule. There's a lot of underlines and strikeouts, but I want to kind of tell you what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to make any substantive changes. Those would be for down the road as some of these more significant discussions take place that Scott and Sam have been talking about. What we've been trying to do is take this rule, which was one of the last rules that has not been updated to comply with the administrative rule style guide, and basically bring that into compliance with how we write our other rules. So you're going to see that I moved some sections around. There were some definitions that we took out that were already in R277-100, which is our universal definitions rule. We changed how we incorporated the school construction resource manual by reference. So you'll see a new section that adds that. And then I tried to basically rewrite everything to be consistent with the style guide. My attempt in doing that was not to change, like I say, anything substantively, but just to kind of bring it into the right form of language that we try and use. So that's what we're trying to do here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about what we've attempted to do with these amendments.
Thank you very much, Ben. And I'll mention I've had a chance to go through this and have a couple chats. So other board members, I'll point, a lot of these are stylistic and updates to make it more consistent with practice out there, make it more accessible. Couple things, one item on 236, an LAA shall maintain documentation for audit or monitoring. And we've had a lot of discussion internally here about auditing and monitoring. And so this kind of helps clarify that piece of it as well. So that's something I think that stood out, but I got a lot of work here that provides some clarity. Who's got questions? I think Vice Chair Norton and Member Hart.
On this, I've also had some questions that I discussed with Ben, and he's been very helpful to explain to me some different things. One thing that I did bring up, and I am not a construction management expert, and so I'm bringing it to all the rest of you who are. But I thought it might be helpful on section 7, which I see section 8, which I see on the screen right now, if that would possibly be a place that we might want to introduce, in addition to developing plans and consulting with local people on a variety of different issues, that possibly one that we might want to discuss with them, because it seems to affect every school in some way, and that would be transportation. So I'll kind of just leave this to the body, but I noticed parking was addressed, but I didn't notice, transportation routes or safety of students in those transportation routes. And that maybe would be something that we would want to have addressed prior to the beginning of a contract and throughout the contract.
May I respond to that, Chair?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So I was just going to ask Vice Chair Norton on 222 to 224. It looks to me like that is somewhat addressed. I'm not sure if that's everything that you want to address, but is that what you were thinking, or is there some additional language that you have in mind?
Well, that is important, but even not necessarily. I mean, how transportation interacts with student transportation, because they're coming on bike and walking, and so I'm also talking there, sidewalks as a method of transportation and those types of issues. Did that confuse the
I think I see what you're getting at. I think as you look at what these local agencies typically deal with, that would be high on their radar, and that would be something they would incorporate. But that could be something that we add more specifically in our rule.
Okay.
Is there a proposed amendment, Vice Chair Norton, that you want to?
No, I didn't even know if it was something that was necessary. That's why I wanted to bring it up here to see, if that was already addressed. But just as they go through this guide and continue it, I think for draft 1 we're fine, but that might be something for future use, that as this is looked at more extensively, that might be something that they want to address or not.
Thank you. And feel free to throw amendments out. We've got time to fine tune this if people have thoughts. Member Hart?
Yeah, I had the pleasure and was lucky enough to be involved in a school building construction project. And actually it's the highlight of my career so far. So, and Board Member Norton's right. That is a significant concern. In fact, we rotated the building 180 degrees so that we would improve or mitigate the risk, some risk of student and pedestrian traffic and street traffic and all that. But I do feel like it is included in those lines. I think actually that is exactly what we were, when we were talking about it, we were talking about the roadways and the safety and the safe walking routes and that kind of thing. So I feel pretty comfortable it's there, unless there's specific verbiage that somebody wanted to add. But other than that, I thought it was pretty inclusive, and I was ready to make a motion. If we want to do an amendment, I'd certainly yield to somebody that wants to do that. Otherwise, I'd like to make a motion, Chair.
Let me turn to CAE Davis for a second. I see another hand up, and then maybe
Okay.
come back if somebody's
Sounds
got
good.
Yeah, so Chief Audit Executive Debbie Davis, once again, I just have a couple comments about it's section 13. So we're talking the lines starting about 422. I've had the opportunity to become more familiar with this report through some discussions with the Office of the State Auditor, and it's kind of an evolving area and situation in my conversation. So I didn't even have time to relay all of this to Ben, but on line 434 and 441, we reference Utah Code 67-3-12. And kind of what happened with this report is initially it was going to state finance or the treasurer's office, and then code was changed and the state auditor's office now receives the report, and it was tied in with the transparency website. The thing is that in 2021, I think it was House Bill 27, that piece of Utah code, the 67-3-12, removed reference to the report. It's no longer included. So I don't think we want to reference it in our rule. So on that line 441 and 434. So I don't know if those lines just go away. And then also on 438 and 439, it talks about the format of the report, that it will be kind of according to whatever the state auditor's office prescribes. Well, just this week, a day ago maybe, I heard from the state auditor's office and they said, well, the State Board of Education is really the only user of the report. And I would say the public is also. But we can prescribe the format. They are merely collecting it. So if we want any changes to the format, that's on us. They're not going to prescribe a format other than what is currently, I mean, there's a form out there and people have to fill out that form. So that's currently what's prescribed, and they're the ones that have that report. So in that way, I guess they're indirectly prescribing, but they indicated that the format is up to us. They can do whatever we want with that form. We just need to let them know. So I just wanted to point that out since you're looking at this rule. Anyway.
Thank you, Debbie. Good. And thanks for the legwork. I was not aware of that. Ben or anybody else, any response to that about what we, and Debbie, does that mean we keep that code section in, or just consider whether we want to add any clarity about the format of the report since we're the user? And I guess I also wonder, I assume we get this report. It doesn't say that in here, but it's going to the state auditor, but I assume this goes to the state board as well. I see Sam's hand up. Do you want to address that? And start with Debbie's questions, not mine. Mine were kind of add-ons.
And yeah, some additional context is that we've been addressing this in our reporting and requirements task force as a potential report to look at for maybe reducing some reporting burden on the LEAs. You know, in the future, this may be something that our school construction specialist could collect as he issues project numbers, things like that, and maybe possibly reduce some burden on the LEAs in that regard. we have, but yes, that section of code is gone. It really, at this point, what happens is the LEAs submit those reports to the Office of the State Auditor. We then compile those reports, the USBE does, and publishes a summary as part of the superintendent's report. And so it's publicly available on our website. You can access that at any time. But it isn't a widely known report, and it really doesn't have, the current code does not have a lot of detail on what should be included in the report. The example that I gave to the Reporting and Requirements Task Force is it may say that a school district has constructed a tennis facility or some tennis courts, you know, and let's say that there's a square footage number and a dollar amount. That's really all that we're collecting at this point. And so we don't have, for the public, there's no information on whether that tennis court is clay and I'm not saying I know of any school districts that have clay and grass tennis courts, but you know, I may have watched a little bit too much Wimbledon this summer, but whether it's a big high school project or a classroom remodel, we don't know specifically what the type of building design was just from looking at this specific report. And so, you know, the usability can vary a little bit. It's really helpful for a high level general idea, maybe of what other school districts are doing. But it's not a huge value add. We don't feel like to the larger education community at this point. So Chief Audit Executive Davis, did I address your questions? And is there anything else I can clarify here? It's again, right now the USBE staff is compiling those submissions given to the state auditor, posting it on our website, and that's the current climate of it.
Debbie, yeah, thank you. Debbie, follow up? And then I see Ben's hand too.
Sure, also, and Ben might be able to speak to whether or not we leave the lines in. At this point, since there's nothing in 67-3-12, I would think we could get rid of lines 433 and 434, as well as 440 through 442. But then specific to what Sam's talking about, do we need this report? Currently, financial statements include in their footnote, in their notes disclosures, information about construction commitments and construction in progress or process. And that includes some similar information to what is included in this plant capital outlay report. The report and rule, the plant capital outlay report actually breaks things down just a little bit more than what's in the financial statements. But one concern, and this is how I even got involved in the first place, is that information does not reconcile to the financial statements. So there is a possibility that if we want this information, it could just be rolled into some information in the financial statements. Either we could expand what's there or just take what's in the financial statements and call it good. And then everything reconciles anyway, and you have an auditor looking at it, and fantastic, right? Another option is it could be put in the state compliance audit guide if we wanted some additional information. So I think if we want this report, there are other ways to go about getting the information through processes that are already in play. And again, an auditor would be looking at that, which provides an additional level of assurance. So I think what Sam's saying is, hey, there's some other options on the table. Let's think about them. And maybe there's an easier way to go about getting this information if it's really needed. So hopefully that covers both points.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just respond from the task force perspective, because this was identified as something that, LEAs are wondering how much use do we get out of this? It takes a lot, but is it duplicative and is it used? So I think it's helpful to hear from Debbie that the auditor is open to us sort of saying, what do we need? We're the user. And one of the things we discussed in the task force, given that there are these other information gathering tools like the financial statements that Debbie's talking about, is there a way for us to do a little bit more consolidation on our part in pulling the data, putting in usable form? Part of this is transparency and oversight from the public, part of it is also being able to use it for other schools that are looking for comparable costs. And so we're just going through this in my backyard in Wasatch. And when you build a school, you look around, you say, okay, who's doing what? How much did it cost? You know, these are the discussions you have in the planning stages. That's not me, I'm at the state board, but having been sitting through that process, you can see how this information is usable. But this particular report does not necessarily give you what you would want, as Sam suggests. So I think what I'm hearing and what we came out of the task force, there might be ways of looking at pulling the right data in the right format that's usable, and doing a little bit of that legwork internally might save a lot of work out in the field at the LEA level, where what they're doing to complete these reports isn't maybe the most useful, you know, use of the most productive use of their time for the purposes of transparency, and then using it for other schools that might want to plan. But it sounds like maybe we're not ready to make a change here, or perhaps we are. Ben, did you want to weigh in on?
I was just going to say, given what Debbie and Sam have said, we could maybe take those last several lines and simplify them by just saying the school plant capital outlay report shall include information as requested by the superintendent. This would give staff the ability to change this as needed, and working with the task force. That could be something very simple if the committee wants to give that much discretion to staff, or we could wait and see how this goes down the line with other substantive changes to the rule.
And I would want to make sure that we have in rule the specificity required by code. But if that code is not, it would be satisfied by the kind of language you just suggested. If it's at our discretion, then that might be an amendment we want to make now. Member Hutchings, I saw a hand, but then it's down. Did you?
Well, I was just going to ask that question. Do we want to make that change now? I'd be happy to make the motion to amend. I was thinking at the time that I raised my hand that the motion would be to remove those lines, but if we want to modify them, I would ask Ben to restate his suggestion.
Yeah, unless there's any other, or I guess we could have comment after the suggestion, but that sounds like an opportunity then to give some flexibility while we're considering the best way to approach this, but stay in compliance with code such as it is. If there are no other hands, Ben, do you want to throw out a proposed amendment there?
So I was going to suggest striking lines 433 through the end to 442, and then just saying the school plant capital outlay report shall include information as required by the superintendent. And I don't know if we need to include the auditor as well, but we could say the auditor as well.
The state auditor or CAE?
State auditor, yes, excuse me.
And I guess based on existing code and Debbie, your discussions with the state auditor, would it be wise to include the auditor in that language, or is that unnecessary?
I'll just jump in. I think it's unnecessary. Right now, the only code, and it's actually in 53G, I can't quote it off the top of my head, but all it says is that LEAs have to submit this report to the state auditor's office. So there's nothing that says the state auditor's office has to prescribe anything. Any of that language was removed. So I believe it is at our discretion, and the language that Ben's proposing would be fine.
Okay, that sounds good. And we would still be submitting it to the state auditor, correct?
Yes.
Just that we would follow our own parameters for what's included, which fits with the code and our understanding of the state auditor's current advice on the subject as well. Okay. Member Hutchings, did you want to make that motion then, or?
And let me make it with a question mark at the end to make sure. I know I didn't get all of Ben's words down. I'm hoping someone did. But the motion would be to amend to remove, is it lines 433 through 442 then?
Yes.
Okay. And replace with
the school plant capital outlay report shall include information required by the superintendent.
Perfect.
So moved? Is that
So moved.
The motion is on? Okay, I'll second. And any discussion to the motion? Okay, board members, please vote electronically. Let me see, I don't see member Norton, Vice Chair Norton.
Oh, sorry.
All right, there we go. That vote is unanimous in the affirmative. Thank you very much for walking us through that. I think that is a technical but very helpful change. So appreciate getting us in the weeds on that. And we can report also back to that reports and requirement task force that we're taking action on one of their suggestions as well. All right, thank you much. We will move on to action item number 4.
We still need to vote on the full rule, Chair.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
I'm
was the
sorry.
amendment.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's just the amendment. Yes. Okay. Seeking a motion then on the full, the full changes to the rule.
I think, was Molly going to do that?
Member Hart? Okay.
Sure, I'll do that.
What? Okay.
I move that the committee approve our 277-471 as amended.
Draft 1 is
Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. I'll second. Discussion of the motion. I do see Debbie's hand up. CAA Davis.
It's not for the motion, but I guess it's relevant to the overall conversation. So I don't know if you want me to make the comment now or after you vote.
If it's necessary for the vote, I probably should have recognized your hand before we brought the motion, but in the interest of making sure we're fully informed, if it's something we ought to hear before we vote, go for it.
No, I just had a text from the policy analyst at the state auditor's office who said the legislature is looking at code changes specific to the school plan capital outlay report. So I don't think it impacts this motion, but just for the awareness of the group to know that the legislature will be looking at this also.
Good to hear. Okay. And it seems like they're following along, but no objection to the course of our discussion that you heard, Debbie. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I need to watch for hands better to get this parliamentary procedure correct, but we all need help. Thank you. All right. So any further discussion of the motion? Okay. Board members, please vote. And Vice Chair Norton, okay, that's unanimous in the affirmative again. Thank you. All right, back to agenda item number 4, which is the Aspire Student Information System Development. And I'll give again a brief background on this one. This is something else that's come out of the Reports and Requirements Task Force and has some history and a proposed I'll go ahead and call it a betterment because I'm sort of in Chair Huntsman's former chair. So this is something that was brought up as a request from the field to assist in being interoperable with our system and easing the logistics for having the information that we need for various elements of our oversight job. So I think this is Deputy Jones.
Yeah, yes, sir. So what we're seeking, staff are recommending that, the finance committee recommend to the board. And what we did is, if you look into the backups, is we provided the audit that occurred back in 2017. And then, the background with the motions of the board at the time. So it's been, several years. So since then, or for, 5 years from now, unless there was something that was really driven by code or rule, we've been letting the system pretty much just stay as it is, not enhancing it, improving it, whatever verbiage we want to use to do that. And not a lot of people know this. I get this question asked about, well, how many LEAs are in Aspire? And it's close to 100. I'm thinking a few minutes here, Chair, if we can recognize Paula Huber. She
Yes,
can give
please.
more details on it. But anyway, we have a lot of LEAs that rely on Aspire. And we just really feel that, given the interest of the legislature now, seeing what we tried to show them 5 years ago was that, an Aspire system like this is designed to lessen burdens on LEAs, where you have so many in it, just a small change like a patching or things like that. That means that everybody gets updated right on time, or at least everybody that's using it, etc. So, and even before we had, this what occurred back in 2017 for several years, there was massive recognition from the field on just how user friendly Aspire is or was, back then, and then how much potential it had. And then you have this users group that, when we turn it over to Paula Chair, she can get into, a little bit more details on the user group. But that, there's just so much value in the system, and we're just seeking the ability to turn it. Doesn't mean that, LEAs won't be able to choose or go out and find. We're not inhibiting any kind of market, or procurement processes or things like that. We're just trying to make sure that we meet the legislative's intent of, providing the best systems and resources out there that are possible to our LEAs to make it so they can focus on the important things like literacy rates and, things like that. So anyway, that's just my perspective on this. So, that is, again, the end state. We always begin with the end in mind, is that we're just recommending to the board that we basically turn Aspire back on, right? That we're allowed to, by virtue of the user group, get the system updated and, providing the resources and support that so many LEAs are needing. So hopefully I covered that. Sir, if we could just recognize Paula real quick, just to give you the details on how many LEAs are actually in Aspire right now, and correct or clarify anything I gave you on the history of Aspire. So if we could just hear from her real quick, I'm sure she'll be fast, sir.
Thank you, Paula. Yes, please.
Yes, currently we have 87 charter schools, and we also that does not include some of the charters who have more than one campus, which causes us extensive more work, of course. And then we have 16 school districts that are on Aspire. And I was part of the audit when they did the audit. And I will be very honest, the auditors were very impressed with Aspire at that time.
All right. Well, thank you both. And the audit was in backup. I have a couple questions, but I'll leave those. I've seen hands, and I apologize, I didn't see the order. We've got Vice Chair Norton, Chair Huntsman, and Member Hutchings. Anybody know who was up first?
I don't have any questions, but I was just saying if you want to get a motion on the table.
Gotcha. Okay. Vice Chair Norton or Member Hutchings, did you have a question or comment?
I think I jumped first last time, so Board Member Hutchings, if you'd like to go, that's fine.
Sure. Actually, I just wanted to say I was actually really excited to see this on our agenda. I've led a couple of schools that has used Aspire and actually made changes as far as the first school, larger school. We used Aspire, and this was years ago. There was some functionality back then that we didn't have through Aspire. And so we moved away from Aspire to a third-party vendor. And it was frustrating that we had to do that when the school where I am currently used a different vendor. But we had a lot of problems communicating data with USBE. So we moved to Aspire, and it has been so much easier. It was the best choice for our school. And just the comparison, and I love that we still have the option, and we're still giving schools the option to choose. But to be honest with you, has made a big difference in the functionality and operations of the schools that I've been a part of, to be able to have a system that will have better functionality and also can communicate data freely with USBE. It's made a big difference in the lives of being able to operate a school, and like was said, to be able to focus on education and not get caught up in the operations and the complexities of communicating data and making sure there's data accuracy. So I was really, like I said, really excited to see this on the agenda, and fully support it.
Thank you, Member Hutchings. Vice Chair Norton?
Yes, it was good for me to go back and refresh through the audit. I hadn't read it since I was campaigning. And so one of the things that popped out to me is the auditors had said that it operates at a level sufficient for its intended purpose, which is always what we would like it to do. I'm like to ask, would you say that part of this recommended action is to update that building and programming from a 2017 level to a 2022 and beyond level? And then after, let me just make one other comment. I thought it was very important to make note that our legislators, our governor's office, our tax commission, in addition to our LEAs and our own body, I mean, just almost every corner of state government is touched by having education data, and to have a system that we have control over to make sure that it is accurate and that everyone can 100%, be ensured that this is accurate and safe data, I think is critical. We don't have that control with third parties, and third parties have their, I realize they have things that are important too, but I don't want to, underestimate the importance of the validity of the information that we get directly from our own system. But anyway, yeah, if you could just, if I could have someone discuss what the building and programming will do going forward and how long that will take.
And if I could piggyback just one additional item before Scott addresses that. My understanding is we wouldn't need to hire more for this. We have the capacity and could do it internally. So maybe to Kristen's point of what will this entail, maybe you could just address any increased cost of turning it back on and maintaining. Is this one back to Deputy Jones or to Paula?
Well, sir, if I may, I recommend Paula for what would it entail, and Jared for the question on resources, right? Like, hiring and things. So if you could recognize Paula first and then Jared, sir, to answer both questions, please.
Great, thank you. Paula and Jared.
First, I would like to say that the Utah State Student Information System, Aspire, is the very best when it comes to submitting data to the state. We never have a performance problem. We never have any problems getting the data there. And we are the first to implement any legislative or federal government mandates on our software. So that being said, the things that we need to improve on, of course, is because data changes, cutting edge programming, and we are trying to be the very best student information system in the state. And we are really there, but there are things that we lack because schools are expanding in their needs extensively because of all the new requirements and all the ways that education performs. So we constantly want to improve and better our software.
Thank you. Jared?
Yeah, Chair, let me just piggyback off of Paula real quick too. They do meet with a user group, Aspire users group, and they come to the table with recommended changes as well. And then those get planned into the work that the developers do. And so a lot of those changes we don't know yet, but there are, we do have a backlog, and I'm sure Paula could go into details about that, but without boring you, there are changes that have been sitting on the backlog that need to be done as well. And so those would get time boxed and decided on, as priority wise by the user group and then by the Aspire team. And so there is work to be done. As far as the hiring goes, we since we put development on hold, we haven't hired a couple of vacancies that are directed for the Aspire team. And so we would now, if the board approves this going forward, we would hire, one or two, depending on the workload. And we wouldn't hire any more than we need to until we see what the workload is.
Could I just add really quickly? I have never seen a a work group so enthusiastic about the work that they do. As a school leader, I get those emails, and I've never attended a meeting, but just in those emails, there's a lot of communication and sharing going on in those emails, and the enthusiasm and the passion for computer system development in those emails is actually really fun to watch. So just had to say that.
Yeah, no, they are a great group of people, and they are dedicated to making Aspire what it can be and what it is today. So yeah, so I hope that, Chair, if that answers the question, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. And I see Chair Huntsman's hand. I guess I'll just suggest or ask that we can look at how that relates to some of the FTE needs that we've already outlined for question. And how we can, fit that into what we're doing, and just obviously keep the cost as tight as we can, and provide the service that we need to provide, but kind of make sure we're being frugal about that. I know we are always, and we'll just look at that as we finalize our approach for new positions, I think. And so just a suggestion, Chair Huntsman.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a motion and then speak to the motion.
Please. Unless Chair or Vice Chair Norton, did you have a question before we get to the motion, or?
No, sorry. I
Okay.
just need to lower my hand.
Sorry, all right.
Okay, my motion is that the Finance Committee recommends that the Utah State Board of Education lift the current moratorium on the building and programming of the Aspire SIS and permit USBE staff to build the system to provide the highest level of support and efficiency to the LEAs that choose to use the system, and with the interest of assuring interoperability with the Utah schools information management systems usage as is required with all other SISs and the LEAs choose to utilize.
Nice second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, further discussion?
Can I just speak
sorry.
to that? And it doesn't require a second, but I'm sure there's a lot of enthusiasm. It's good to bring this back. This will be an interesting journey as this plays out with other software and that, but I guarantee you, well, right now I'm already seeing the smiling faces from a lot of LEAs, and there'll be a lot more when, if and when the board supports the Finance Committee's request here of action. So thank you for bringing this back, and this will be another thing that we'll report back to the Reports of Requirement Task Force. Thank you, sir. Roger.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for steering this through the task force. And I think this is something that is a little bit more work and maybe a little bit more funding at our level, which has the effect of taking off the burden of time and expense at the LEA level. And so I think it's a real kind of leverage point where we can provide some service there. And I'm glad we were able to bring this forward, and I've heard from LEAs as well. So unless there any further discussion to the motion, and I forgot we don't need a second. I'm glad we're excited to be a second. That's we're voluntarily adding a little bit of support, but if there's nothing further, board members, please vote. And that is unanimously passed. Thank you very much.
Hey, Chair, real quick.
Yes.
Make one comment. So I just want to be clear that there will be no need for additional funding for the IT to support this. We already have those FTEs that we would just need to hire for. So no additional funding. We just haven't hired them because of the hold that's been on. So
thank you. Okay, very, very helpful. All right. Thank you much. Okay, on to item number 5. This is something that we will have some action on, but for now it's kind of a primer and information item. Limits on the number of audits and monitoring of district and charter schools. Deputy Jones.
Yes, sir. Thanks. So I've been tasked with getting more information from other states that have taken similar approaches to looking at the amount of audits, monitoring visits, et cetera, that their LEAs incur. I did get some feedback, but it was only from one state. And it wasn't in time for me to get it into the backup. So I requested from Chair Moss that we go ahead and just make this an information item. I mean, at the end of the day, what we need to, well, by the start of the legislative session, what we would like to do is propose some changes to code or something along the lines of, because, you know, I don't know about any of the finance committee members or board members, but one of the biggest things I hear is, it's not that they're not against getting audited. It's not that. It's not, they respect and appreciate our internal audit. They respect and appreciate the OSA, and they being like BAs and the districts and the superintendents. It's just the amount of time and effort it's taking to answer all of them, you know, to do that. And I think that's fair. Nobody's trying to disparage anyone or say anything, offensive towards anybody or the processes that take place. We value the audits, but what they were seeking is a little bit more attention to just how much time is spent having to, deal with the OLAG audits and the own internal audits, in addition to what is actually required, by statute, right? So for example, if an LEA receives over $750,000 of federal money, they have to incur a single audit. If they all have to have external auditors audit their financial statements at the end of every year. There's just some things for the legal requirements. Their big question is, well, why can't we just have it to where, our external auditors are, voice their opinion on the, you saw the OLAG results of their audits, not enough monitoring, not enough, refine the chart of accounts. We'll do all that. But once we do that, what they're asking for, they being LEAs, superintendents, charter school directors, is, they have been, they've been very positive. We started the chart of accounts work group, and they said, so why can't we get to the point where we do all of this, we get to what right is by virtue of the recommendations of the OLAG auditors, by internal audit. Debbie and her team are just outstanding. Once we get there, though, once we make the changes to the chart of accounts, is it possible that we could just rely on only what's required, i.e. the external audits or, the external audits, the single audit. Each year we incur an MSP audit that's very focused by the Office of the State Auditor. Why isn't that good enough, from an audit perspective? Now, if I could switch to monitoring, like I said earlier, it's been, a little bit of a surprise what was presented this morning to me, but it's good. It's, it's a good thing, in the sense of, we're working closely one-to-one staff to LEA in financial operations with the LEAs, so that the monitoring is more of a train, monitor, improve, working together. That's what we're doing, trying to foster right now. And I think we're, maybe we're not moving fast enough. I don't know on that, but that was the intent of the plan there as well. So they're saying, look, it's not that we're against being audited. It's not that we're against being monitored, but could we lessen the frequency of them, and or just maybe and it could be a year or two later, right? After we get the chart of accounts revised, because we again sincerely appreciate the OLAG. So this has become more of an information item to you today. I'd gladly provide you with next month with the backups from the other states. There's 3 of them. I only got one in time. They're busy, they're doing it, but they said it's made a tremendous difference to them. Now, granted, a lot of it was done because of the COVID impacts, right? They said, hey, we're going to reduce the auditing so you can focus on your kids and learning loss and, work through that. So, and there is, all 3 of them said there is a risk that it could get, ramped up again, right? One state in particular, it was very clear that they reduced the number of audits to just what's required, i.e. single audits, things like that, because of the wanting to give a little bit more quote unquote breathing room to their LEAs during the COVID crisis. So that doesn't mean that state couldn't turn, other audits back on or increase the frequency as well. So sir, that concludes my update for this particular agenda item. And, I look forward to any direction from you in the finance committee, sir.
Thank you very much. Any committee member question or comments? I'll just say that it's one of those ironies of COVID. It was such a sledgehammer to the head, but it's been an opportunity to assess certain things and decide whether they're really necessary or efficient. And so I really appreciate the work going down this road. And I think we're in good hands here. We talked a couple months ago about no findings, and we know that our group is very committed to appropriate oversight and yet looking for ways to make it efficient and lessen that burden and strike the right balance. So look forward to hearing Member Hutchings and Chair Huntsman.
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate this, and to speak, I think particularly, and it was brought out, charter directors, smaller school districts, all these audits are such a heavy load on small administrative teams, and takes our attention away from, again, educating kids and supporting teachers. And so if I really like what Chair Moss said about, we've learned in COVID how to prioritize. And I think this is a really a great benefit coming out of what we've learned and analyzing, what's really necessary, what's helpful, and what's a bigger burden than is necessary. With that said, I also, not that I love audits or monitoring, but I see the value of it. I always walk away from an audit visit or a monitoring visit with ideas of how to improve the school operations, and that is important. And so hopefully we could come out of this and find that balance, providing the support and making sure that schools are functioning as they should, but also allowing school administrators to focus on the kids and supporting the teachers. So thanks.
Thank you, Member Hutchings. Chair Huntsman and CAE Davis.
Thank you. This isn't going to get resolved, but I'll be looking forward to this, and maybe, and so I'll just give a heads up as before we get something in our next month's backup. So this to direct it to Superintendent Jones is these other states. I'll just be curious. I don't need an answer now, but they in the whole space of auditing and monitoring, I'm curious to see if those states have a really good system similar to what we're proposing with USIMS, because that relieves a lot of that monitoring and auditing burden when the state has access to data, and it doesn't tie up administration. So I'm curious on that. And then also in this space is their ability to access those systems, because in the front end of all of the USIMS, I could see the benefit of easy access to data, and part of the monitoring is not going to replace the in the facility monitoring, but I'm curious. So I'm hopefully in our backups or you'll be prepared on talking about those states existing systems to access data. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And we'll look forward to next month's CAE Davis.
Yes, thank you. So Chief Audit Executive Debbie Davis, I just wanted to speak to one of the items that Deputy Superintendent Jones made, one of his comments. And of course, you all know where I'm coming from on the audit side, but I love this discussion. I think there's a lot to be said in this space. But the point would be, when we're considering the different audits that are done and the monitoring that is done, one thing that must be considered is, what is the assurance that is being given? So to the point of, isn't the financial statement audit, the single audit, the state compliance audit that happens annually, isn't that sufficient? If you look at the opinions for those audits, they are very targeted. For example, a financial statement audit essentially states that your financial position is there are no material misstatements in your financial position. The internal controls that are looked at are very specific to financial reporting. That's all that report says. It's a very important part, especially for banks and bonding and all kinds of things. It definitely has a place, which is why it's required. Similarly for the single audit. But what those reports do not say is that your entire entity has a clean bill of health. Right? It could be like going to the doctor and they say, you're healthy. Well, that's right. But would your dentist say the same thing? It's a little bit different. So we need to, I think it would be very important to consider the assurance that it's being given by each of the reports. They're intended to do different things, which is why they're all a little bit different. They may follow different standards. I think how it's done, the internal control systems around how it's done, and my department, we've learned a lot, and hopefully we're refining and doing things a little bit better, more efficiently over time. So that's why this discussion is so great. I love having this discussion, and I will say the board's audit committee is also very interested in this discussion. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you for a minute to do so.
Thank you very much, CAE Davis. And I really appreciate that we have a very balanced approach to this. And we're very aware of our staff's commitment to having appropriate oversight. So not looking to lessen the need to get the appropriate assurances and monitoring and auditing. And I think we've got a great balance. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. Appreciate input from everybody. If there are no further questions, or Deputy Jones, did you have your hand back up on this one, or back to you for whatever, this item or the next?
Just real quick, Chair, I think this is important and for the good of the group. To Chair Huntsman's point, absolutely, we'll link in the USIMS piece. 2 of the 3 states were states that came out to visit us and are incorporating the design that we have for USIMS into their own systems. So that should be, an indication of what they're doing too. So there's that. And then to Chief Audit Executive Davis's point, completely acknowledged on that. So that made me recall that there's support though too. Well, why can't we increase, if it's the external auditors, why can't we increase the audit requirements, right? Either by them so there's not multiple entities coming in. And I know, both Debbie and I, Chief Audit Executive, we've talked to external auditors, and they're kind of like, well, it costs a lot of money, take a lot of time, so they want us to look at that too. How could we, because I completely agree with Auditor Davis, is that we have to make sure that, we have the capabilities and the abilities to go further than what we are seeing in there too. But what they're asking for is, can we do it all with one audit, a be all end all audit, well, so we'll work through that too, acknowledge, she makes a great point, sir. So thank you all.
Well, thank you both, and look forward to the ongoing discussion. And again, it's a great balance. If there are things we can do that achieves our purposes of oversight while freeing up a little bit of that time at the local level, I think that's what we're all working towards. We've got a great team, so I appreciate the conversation getting started here. And Member Hart, you have a question?
Not a question. I just, on this item, I think CAE Davis said it briefly, and I'd like to repeat it. As a member of the audit committee, this issue needs to be joint with them, considering, or at least, informationally, it parallel tracks, because she's right. That's exactly what we're talking about and what we're concerned about. And we have a lot to say in this space too. So just wanted to make sure. I wanted you to hopefully take that back to leadership as we move forward in this space.
Yeah, thank you. And we do monitoring here and auditings over there, and we correlate and work together, and we do want to make sure we're both working together and considering both functions. And all right, well, thank you. Thank you all. And next one is our a bylaws amendment. Action item 6, to require mid-year updates to USBE. I think this one goes back to Deputy Jones.
Yes, so if we can pull it up, if the finance committee members will recall, back last year about this time frame, well, it was actually in November, December timeframe. Our exceptional Del Frost and came to you and gave you the mid-year updates, and then I really can't remember which board member it was, but somebody said, hey, is this required? Are you? And no, it's not. So then there was I believe it was a motion, or maybe it wasn't a motion, but it was like basically, hey, go look at codifying that, USB staff would be required to provide mid-year updates to the finance committee. So, by way of providing them to the finance committee, we provide them to the board. So we did, we looked at a few of the rules, and it just didn't seem to fit. So what we're recommending is that you make it part of your board bylaws, and then you make it a condition of this position, take my name out of it. So whoever's in this position, you require in your board bylaws that they provide you the mid-year update, which, implies that, and I can't just emphasize enough how grateful I am for Sam and Dale, and their technical expertise to provide you the mid-year updates. Why this is really so important, and I think this was drawn out last year, is you as finance committee members, each time that we present to you we all have to agree that the mid-year update is a significant change or impact to our LEAs, right? And we want to be able to provide you the details of the changes by way of the mid-year updates that result from the process we take with head count, the student counts and things like that. So if you'll scroll down, and I don't know if Brian or they're probably tied up in other committees, but Brian and Ben really helped with this. It's the paragraph where you go down to it's the description of this position that we're so a little bit further down. I think it's Article 7. And I'm sorry, I'm battling some bronchitis and stuff. So, okay, no, actually, it's a little further down. It's on the personnel, or maybe it's the cough syrup with codeine that is making me.
We're glad you're with us. Playing hurt.
Yeah.
It's down in there.
Wait, yeah, there it is.
Page
Okay.
19 and 20.
Yeah, thank you. That's my fault, Cammie. I'm not navigating well. Yes, here it is. So you as the board appoint this position, and then it's specific on what this position oversees, right? And then this is what we're asking for. Well, and also too, I need to be specific. It wasn't codified on the monthly budget report either. So we're trying to catch that one now too. So this position will provide you, the board, a monthly budget report and attest to the board's compliance with the Budgetary Procedures Act and the State Money Management Act, and notify you whenever we're at risk. And if you could scroll down a little further, if we're at risk of non-compliance. And then provide the board, this is, what I've really been talking about here, is provide the board through the finance committee a mid-year update on changes to funding amounts to LEAs resulting from the October 1 student counts process. We don't have to be specific. And Chair, I'd like you to recognize Dale, or both Sam and Dale, and see if they have any additions to this too. But I really feel that it's important that this do get codified. Maybe you don't want it in your bylaws, but we really struggled to find an applicable rule. Or, there's a lot of good all the rules are good, they're great, but we really couldn't find where it fit here. So we really felt like, this is why we went with the bylaws. And I know I'm rambling here. So if you could call on Sam and Dale, who right now, by virtue of their positions, would be the ones that would have to do this, provide you the mid-year updates. So just to see if they have any wording issues or anything like that, that would be great. So
thank you, Scott. Thanks for playing hurt.
Oh, no problem.
Appreciate you working through it with us. Sam, Dale, anything to add there?
Yeah, Dale, if you had anything, I believe the wording as it stands right now, gives us, it does codify it, but it doesn't tie us to any specific format or anything like that. And so I'm really appreciative of Ben's work to put these updates there, and really supportive of the language as it stands, but open to other ideas.
Thank you. And Dale Frost, anything else to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moss. Yeah, I wanted to, I don't know if it needs to have a change the language. The language as it's written is perfectly fine, because the October 1 student counts is the largest kind of new data point that drives the mid-year updates. In addition to that, we have the finalized prior year ADM. And so it kind of hints at the timing of that. The mid-year update occurs in November and December if we don't get to everything. And we don't want to be too prescriptive here. So I don't really have any changes that I think have to happen. I just wanted to give you a little more context to some of the big drivers and the timing of that. And then it's up to you if you want to change that language. I think it's sufficient.
Great, thank you much. Vice Chair Norton and Chair Huntsman.
I just had a motion ready when we are ready.
Okay, Chair Huntsman.
Oh, I just saying, well, I just in support of this, and it is the right place to put it in rule, because whoever's in that position and they're looking at their duties and responsibilities, it's a constant reminder, and there is a significant benefit of having it. So I was just speaking in support, and I don't think we've got to have a rule for everything, but this is a good landing place. Appreciate their creative way of finding a solution to that request. Thank you.
And I'll echo that, and I'll just say, there was one of the ledge audits was talking about internal oversight transparency. This is another, I think, step in that direction of making sure that we're overseeing our own processes, just as you're out overseeing the LEAs. And this does look like the right place to put it, since it's an internal matter of, getting that reporting from our staff to the finance committee. So seems a good solid solution. Vice Chair Norton, back to you if you wanted to do the motion.
And I also think it speaks to the leadership of finance. So great job, gentlemen and ladies. Okay, I move that the finance committee recommends amendments to the board bylaws requiring USBE staff to provide the mid-year updates, final calculations for public education funds every year to the finance committee.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any further discussion of the motion? Seeing none, please vote. And that, well, did I see Member Hutchings? Sorry, let me expand my view. There we go. Got it. Okay. That's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Couple final information items. Request for data information. Back to Deputy Jones.
Yeah, Cami, if you can go into that one. So I believe Assistant Superintendent Nielsen is here. I thought I saw him, but I don't see him now. Are you here, sir? Because Cami, wasn't it him that was going to do the assessment achievement summary?
Yeah, it was, but I'm guessing he probably had to jump into another committee.
Okay, well, so let's do this. Then we have Aaron here, sir. If you'll call on recognize Aaron, he can you do the follow-up on the district student counts and percent of total students that was asked for. So if you'll recognize him, he can give you the background of why this is in there and as the follow-up. So
Thank you. Yeah, Aaron Bruff. Gosh, I keep messing up titles. Data Guru. Is it okay if I use Guru of Data? Director of, go ahead. Please. Here, you got the floor, Aaron. If we have Aaron, he might be multitasking too. So we may want to defer these items since they're information items. Deputy Jones, I defer to you. Do we want to hit the final item and then come back to this one if we've got?
Yeah, let's do that. I don't know. God, it just seemed like I just saw that. No, Aaron's here. He's in the room.
He's in the room, but he might be called into another committee. I don't know.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's go to if at your direction, sir, let's go to number 8.
Sounds good.
Yes, number 8. Okay, so 8.1, sir, as you know, is the program monthly report that okay. Yeah, let's do that first, Cami. Sorry. So we want to recognize the progress and improvements of our construction projects. I know there's been a lot of focus on that. So we just want to show you the results of some of the projects. So Chair, if you'll recognize Cami, she can walk you through all the different great things we've accomplished with construction, with our partners at DFCM. So
you bet. Cami, thank you.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Chair. The first thing I posted on here was just a construction timeline to show you with that studio renovation. We actually started at the first part of May. We do have, it was scheduled to complete the end of August. We do have a couple of just small items still on the punch list. Again, the ability to get some of the lighting things that we needed have been on back order. No fault of the contractor or anything that they could, not foresee. But I wanted to share a couple of the pictures with you and highlight, this is a before of the studio office. It used to be 2 very small offices in the same, like adjacent to each other. And everywhere in the offices and also in the sound studio, you'll see these brown waffle shaped soundproofing. Not only was it a great dust collector, but it also was extremely flammable. So we were pretty excited when this got approved and we could get it changed out. You'll also notice under these desks, there was not enough electrical outlets or power in the room to support the needs of all the equipment that we needed to run. Also, it was a different type of ceiling, so it was very difficult to run the wires and the stuff needed to have like our LAN connections. So in our after picture of the offices, you can see that they took out the dividing barrier between the 2 offices. So it's one great big space now. And then they've also added electrical along the floors and in the walls, really beefed up on the electrical options or ability for that space as well. In the studio room, we talked about, here's some more of that fun waffle soundproofing that we loved so much. It was also, if you look at the ceilings, I didn't take great before pictures, and I apologize, I need to do a better job of that. But you can see these great big lights being held up by chains. And we also had these metal rods on the ceiling where the old lights were hanging from. Not only did they produce a ton of heat when they were on, but they were just big and bulky and not really nice looking. And then we had these drapes that were really heavy and full of dust. Great stuff. But in the after picture, you can see that they've cleaned all of that up. All of the wiring again is behind the walls, and we have the plugs throughout the area. Lots more electrical again, and you can see the nice lighting upgrades with the LED lights as well. I did want to mention Jerry Record, our studio person. He was really excited and wanted me to say how much he appreciated it. And he feels like it's a glorious space now. I have to agree with him as well. And I really appreciated the contractors that worked on us with this project. we have a design team that comes in and tries to, guess at what's behind the walls. But when we actually take the sheetrock and stuff down, there's always surprises behind those walls. And they really worked well with Jerry and tried to accommodate all of his requests. And I just wanted to, again, put a shout out to DFCM and that contractor for their assistance and helping in any adjustments that they could. And for those of you who haven't come to see the space yet, it is in the basement in our southwest corner. And the next time you're in the building, we'd love to have you come and take a look at it, because in person, it really is just so much prettier. And that's all I had on that.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, it kind of looked like some of my old college apartments in the before photos. So big improvement. That's a beautiful space. Can you tell us really quickly what are all the uses? What happens here? Because I wasn't even aware of where it was.
So videos, if we do videos as an agency, they'll do a lot of recording here. That's where the soundproofing and stuff is at. They will hold meetings and stuff in there as well. This is also where Jerry runs his operations for streaming all of the meetings and board meeting and all of that type of stuff. So busy little space.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And our thanks to the contractors and everybody that made it work. It's like a great improvement. All right, thank you very much. Back to Deputy Jones. Do we have Darren or Aaron for the other items, or should we defer? Oh, I see Darren here. Assistant Superintendent Nielsen on. Should I just turn it to you, or Scott? Do you want to do aircraft control here, or can I just defer to Darren to take it away? Sounds like it's to you, Darren. If that's all right.
I'm gonna need to get grounded in the request. I was in another meeting and saw that I was needed here, so I've jumped in. I'm a little cold on what the context is.
Oh, I apologize. I know you're multitasking. So this was an information request item about the A2A project, and I'm not sure. I apologize. I've lost track of the scope of the request, and if somebody's on, we could clarify. If not, I think we could just as easily put it to next month. I know our staff, this is a 3-ring circus for you, so perhaps don't have further. Oh, Molly, member Hart.
Yeah, I think this might have been my request, maybe. Assistant Superintendent Nielsen followed up with me immediately, and I just wanted a refresher on the project and who it was serving, and I got all my questions answered. So unless someone else in the committee had questions, that's where this item, I believe, originated from, and it's been answered and then some.
Okay. Any further questions for Assistant Superintendent Nielsen while we've got him?
Chair,
Okay,
this is Cami. I just wanted to reiterate that is where this request came from, but because it was placed as an information request, this is just the backup that Darren provided to Molly or Board Member Hart, just so that everyone can see that.
Well, thank you. So that's in the backup. We can review, and I assume we can touch base or double back with Assistant Superintendent Nielsen offline if there are further questions. Thank you, Darren, for joining us, and appreciate jumping around. I think we're good then. Back to Deputy Jones. We had one other item with Aaron Bruff. Can you remind me, so I don't keep calling him Guru of Data, the official, Aaron's official title?
He's our data and statistics coordinator, sir.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And is he here? Is he back in the room?
I know he's on, but I don't see him. So he's probably been pulled elsewhere, and perhaps that's when we defer then. I think that's our last agenda item, right?
No, so we have the PMR for IT.
Okay. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's turn to that then.
Yeah. So, sir, with the project report, as you know, we do a deep dive once a quarter, go slide by slide. We do provide an update, though, an updated slide package for Finance Committee members and the public, to track all the progress and processes that are USIMs right now. However, this month, we'd like your permission to call on, or if you'd recognize Katrina, she's added an additional slide for the first time to the packet. So if we could just spend a few minutes on that particular slide, we felt it was a value add to the overall update in the monthly report, sir. So if you would recognize her, sir, please.
Yes, please. Thanks for joining, Katrina. Floor is yours.
I have to remember to unmute myself. My apologies. Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak today. Katrina Brinkley, Chief Product Owner and Program Manager for USIMS. I'm going to share my screen just to give you a refresher on what we're talking about so that it's less confusing. So we added this slide to the PMR this month just to talk about a new dashboard that we have implemented that is available on our Azure DevOps. There is a link for it. If you click on the slide right here, I'm pointing at my screen like you guys can all see what I'm pointing at. Sorry, circle it with my mouse. And that link will take you over to this dashboard here. This does require a login, and each of you should have already been provided one. It's using your schools.utah.gov account. So if you log into that, it should drop you right in. If you have questions, send me an email, let me know, and we'll get you in. But you can see that all of this information here, this is actually updated as the teams complete the information, as the teams work on it. So using if you're familiar with ticketing systems or anything like that, this is kind of just a general, here's what's going on in the system. So if you want to, you can deep dive into this dashboard and see, like, this is for the Wizards team, which is the student data team. It's got a query in here that's literally got all of these tickets, and you can see what status they're in, and you can see notes on them. You can see information about what they're working on with those and any conversation that's been happening. So it is an up-to-date, minute-by-minute information on the status of USIMS and what production work and what is going on with the teams.
Very, very helpful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Are there any questions?
Member Hart does. I'll just make a comment, and I know you know this, but as we've developed our reports and requirements task force, there's a lot of excitement about what's being done here, and as we're trying to whittle down, things, we're keeping them up to date. So we appreciate your updates to us. It's really, really good work that's happening here. Member Hart.
Holy cow. This is so for fun, I am currently getting my project management certification, and I just can't tell you how much I actually learn through your presentations. These are fantastic, and I think I learn more through this than the classes I'm taking. So this is just amazing. And all the way through this whole management of USIMS with all the challenges, I'm just so impressed at every turn. And I just really appreciate all the thoughtfulness. I think it's one thing to complete a project and, check the boxes. It's a whole nother thing to be thoughtful and understand, where the whole big idea. So I'm just really impressed, and I just appreciate all the work and all of the trouble that you've overcome, the challenges, the staffing, financial troubles, that kind of, not troubles, but challenges along the way with such a large project. So kudos and thank you. And is this when we got the link to the Azure, when we were supposed to try out those links, or is this attached to where we go for the other data tools? Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is attached to Azure, definitely. So I have previously sent information on the wiki to this group, I believe.
Yes.
And the wiki has like our functional advisory board meetings and our focus working group meetings. It's in that exact same place. So if you see here, I clicked on the wiki, or if I click on the dashboards, I can get that dashboard right there too.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll just echo that the internal challenges of this are daunting enough, but to do it while you've got the external factors that came out of COVID and the related labor issues of hiring and funding, it's amazing. So thank you for all the work and for keeping us up to date on it. Any other questions or comments from committee members? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Katrina.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I did want to drop one thing, just a super recent win that wouldn't have gotten in here, but we offered out 3 positions for developers this last week. And one of them will be starting next Thursday, and the other 2 have accepted and will be starting October 24th-ish. So we're super excited. That puts us down to 4 positions for developers left. So
Wonderful. That's
Sure.
excellent. I saw 21 of 30 filled. Is that the total then? And these fall within that group
these will
of
put us
9
up to 24 out of 30.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh,
Member Hart, do you have a?
yeah. Do you work from, does your teams work remote or do they work all in one location?
So we have a combination. We do have some members who are fully remote because they work out of state. But we do have team members here who work on occasion in office 2 to 3 times a week.
All right.
The 3
Well,
that
I
we
know
actually
where
just
to,
offered are Utah based. So
good. Well, I know where to send cookies now. Thank you.
anytime.
All right, thank you very much, Katrina. Back to Deputy Jones. I guess if we do have that final item, we can do it now. If not, we can defer to next month.
Yeah, Chair, I think Aaron's tied up in another committee. So yeah, if we can just push it to next month. It's on the 419. This is Board Member Hart had requested the follow-up information on it that Aaron has prepared. I mean, I can give it a shot, if you want, and then we can go from there. But ma'am, that was you wanted to see so Chair, Board Member Hart wanted to see the number of students who graduate early and those who submit the flag. If you recall, when we were dealing with the rule with 419, ma'am, you had wanted to see that. And that's what these are, these are the numbers here. So you can see that, you can construe from this that we really don't have a lot of early graduators. I don't even know if that's the right word, but early graduators, So anyway, that's what this was from. It was from your inquiry on, when we were doing the 419 update, and I had said, hey, there's that flag in there, and you wanted to see, statistically wise, what the graduation rates were. So. And
again, on this item, this is exactly what I was looking for, and it makes sense. And it's all I needed. I don't, it makes complete sense to me. I'm surprised, but grateful for the data. So please pass along just my appreciation.
And I see Aaron, thank you for responding on this. We know you're pulling triple duty. It sounds like we've got our questions answered, unless Member Hutchings I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick comment on this, because this is interesting. And just a thought with we don't have a whole lot of early graduates. I kind of would suspect that one of the reasons behind that is we found so many great ways for students to earn college credits while they're in high school that it actually benefits them to stay in high school and earn the college credit. So they're with their cohort. And I think that's actually a great benefit to our students. So just wanted to make that comment.
Can I just really quickly ask a difference in what's the distinct student count versus total distinct students? Total distinct in what population group is that? That's not our full student count, right?
So thank Aaron Breff from Data and Statistics. And you put me on the spot saying, remember what you did.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
And it's fine. So as you look at the number, the total distinct students between the two, between the top and the bottom, those numbers are the same. So as we ran it, we looked at, I believe just 9th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th grade students. I believe that's how we set that
That's
up.
our high school population then, and then the distinct
Basically, yeah,
count with
of,
the early
of the
graduators.
cohort. Yeah, and so
Got
when
it.
we say a distinct count, it's a term we just use in the coding where we say, don't repeat a kid's ID wherever they're enrolled. I just want to count it once. So that's what's going on.
Got it. Okay. But so in general, that's our high school population in the second column and the early graduators in the first.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. I got you. Well, thank you. We know you've got other duties. Appreciate it. I think we're covered on this one then. Thank you much for pulling the info and for joining us. Back to you, Deputy Jones. We do have time. We're early. I think we covered everything though.
I think that's it, sir. I'm not, well, we always do pause and ask if there's any data or information. So sir, if you'll ask your committee members if staff need to hunt anything down or, provide any more data or requests, can we just check in with them real quick, sir?
Yeah. Anyone request for next time around? Okay. Well, thank you.
Well, and then sir, if we can just check in with Cammie as well to make sure she doesn't have any questions. So she's captured everything for the motions when she does the notes for that. If you'll check in with her too, sir.
Yes, please, Cammie.
Thanks, Chair Mawson. I've got everything. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anybody want to, sing or dance? We've got 50 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for helping us run a tight ship. A lot of good things done and a lot of good information. So thank you so much for our full team. Good to be a part of this team. I think you guys are doing some great stuff and we really appreciate it. If there's anything from staff that we can address, anybody questions or comments from staff before we close out?
Just wanted to say thank you to the committee members, and as always, please reach out if there's something we can help you with. Happy to do that.
Thank you much, Sam. All right. Thank you all. This is adjourned. See you in a couple hours.
All right.
Thank you. Go watch committees.